Well, welcome to Zen Fits, being broadcast from Blackstone, Virginia, the center of the world. But then you too are at the center of the world. As you can see, I've got my Christmas tree lit. This Christmas tree, a friend of mine moved and left his Christmas tree here fully decorated, put lights on it, so we just leave it up, and Christmas time I plug it in. But then the Christmas tree is the center of the world. You know that the Christmas tree is a metaphor for the cosmic tree, the home tree of Avatar. When you have a Christmas tree in your house, you have the cosmic tree, the sacred tree, the center of the world. The center of the world, you see. And your hearth, metaphorically, with the chimney, is the center of the world. And Santa Claus comes down there, you see, and delivers you all the gifts of the world. All your wishes come true when you sit under the cosmic tree at the center of the world. I digress. So the title of this talk is When My Father Met the Navy, or When the Navy Met My Father. I thought of this today because it's Pearl Harbor, and my father graduated from Annapolis, 1929, was sent to China on the Yangtze River to patrol the Yangtze River in a riverboat. There were two of them, to protect Western interest in China. For 3 years, he was kind of like gone in the boonies, the end of the world. And then he came back and he was in destroyers in the Atlantic, patrolling, protecting convoys. And then when the war started, he was sent to San Diego, to the Pacific, in amphibious landing to prepare for the landings, Guadalcanal. He was in all the amphibious ships, all the landings, amphibious landings. And it wasn't until 1950 that he got 4 years of shore duty. From 1929 to 1950, he was always at sea on a ship. No wonder I'm screwed up. Always looking for the father. But anyway, and then in 1955, he retired kind of angrily, resentful, because he never got a command. They wouldn't give him a command. He was always on the admiral's staff. He was an engineer. He had a degree in engineering, so he was always planning landings, planning projects, planning the admiral maneuvers, a planner. Never got a command. And so for a career officer, go to Annapolis, the goal is to be a captain, have a command, you see. A lot of movies were made of this. Mr. Rogers, and books were written about the desire to have a command and the disappointment. So he resigned. He left her 28 years in the Navy. He could have stayed longer, but he retired. So he was an angry, kind of had post-traumatic syndrome, angry. And then he had a stroke, and kind of like defused him. I mean, he was still healthy, but he just couldn't make choices, had no memory, much to speak of. He was no longer angry. He was okay to be with. Before the stroke, it wasn't so good. But anyway, the story is, I brought my father up here to Blackstone from Florida, where he'd retired, and my mother was taking care of him, and they were sitting on the couch. And in Blackstone at that time, the ROTC, local high school ROTC, had this very imposing commander who really opened it, Commander Rawls. He'd been in the Navy some 30-some years, tall, had a chest full of medals, gold dripping off his hat, sword. Came to our house after Sunday church. Father was sitting on the sofa, and Rawls walked in. He looked just this imposing, white uniform, and my father, eyes opened, and he turned to my mother and said, with tears in his eyes, "They found me. the Navy found me. And in his eyes, it wasn't Rawls, it was the Navy. Had found him out in Blackstone, searched him out, traced him, found him in Blackstone, and came to visit him personally and give him respect and thank him for his service. And so he cried. So that was just a very touching story for me, because I was sitting there watching it. And Commander Rawls, of course, always respected my father, since addressed him as captain, and how are you doing, captain? And my father never became a captain. In other words, he was retired as a commander, and when you retire in the Navy, they give you an honorary promotion. So he was an honorary captain. He was never a captain in the Navy, but he was addressed as captain, you see. Anyway, but the point is, I'm a Zen writer, so I see Zen everywhere, you know. And the Zen that I see everywhere is the form is emptiness, emptiness is form. I work with that all the time. You have to work with this stuff, you know. It has to go on in you like a burr under the saddle, like you've swallowed a hot iron ball, and you can't swallow it, and you can't cough it up, and you can't stay there. What does that mean? Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, you know, or mu, or all of these Zen koans, these axioms. You have to chew on them. You're like a cow with a cud, you know. What does it mean? So anyway, writing about this, looking at this story, when Rawls came in, everyone else here in the room saw Commander Rawls, a historical form. I know who he is. He's the head of the ROTC. That's form. It's defined, has qualities. He's good or bad or whatnot. But you see him. He's real. You know who he is. Form, you see. But when my father saw him, he was empty. The form was empty. He saw the whole Navy, his whole life. The whole Navy he had devoted his life to. He grew up in Idaho. His father was a poor silver miner down in Arizona. They were dirt poor, and his grandmother, Gussie, came down to Arizona and rescued this little tyke, took him back to Idaho, and in a boarding house, and my father worked and got a scholarship to the University of Idaho, and then he got a commission to Annapolis. So he really worked himself up from nothing, from poverty, from a poor Irish son of a dirt silver miner. And he also had a hair lip that he had operated on, but obviously that had scarred him in his youth. But anyway, the point is, he became a naval officer. You know, that was who he was. That gave him identity, status, meaning. An Annapolis graduate. And all of that, you see. So all of that came back through Captain Rawls, you know. So the form was empty, and the Navy was there, you see. So for us, you know, you could say, oh, well, Rawls was he was the symbol of the Navy. Well, my father wasn't a symbol. He was the Navy. You see, he was him. He knew him as the Navy. You see. So the form was empty. But then at the same time, Rawls wasn't the Navy. The Navy was Rawls. So there's this alchemy going on here. And my father's, it's very difficult to explain because we're working with something that can't be explained. But for that moment, Rawls was empty, and yet he was full. So there's an alchemy here. There's a catch-22 here of yes and no. Rawls was the Navy was Rawls. But they were separate. Rawls wasn't the whole Navy, and the whole Navy wasn't Rawls. So these are two, they were different, yet in that metaphorical moment, in my father's eyes, they were one. You see. So form is emptiness, emptiness is form. It's one, but they're separate. but you can't separate them. They're different, but you cannot separate them. So these hands are different. Left is right, right is left. But you can't separate them. They're one body. You see? You can't cut this off. I mean, you could. But I mean, see this? This is one body. This is the one that is two. Form is form, emptiness, emptiness, form. Left is right, right is yes is no, no is right. When you see the whole, when you grasp it, that seeing is the one that is two. And that's the healing of Zen. Seeing, discovering that you are the one that is two. You are the one that is the contradiction. The contradiction is yes and no. No, it's yes is yes, no is no. I'm right, you're right, I'm wrong, you're right, yada, 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 back and forth. Contradiction. Where is the one that is two? You see, you have to discover it. You have to work on it. You have to chew it. So anyway, thanks for dropping in. When the Navy met my father, or found my father. Thanks for dropping.